Welcome to my channel. Try to hear the latest story.
I'm Derek, 34, a single dad raising my beautiful daughter Lily, who's just 11. When my brother Travis and his wife Heather abandoned my little girl at a gas station 1,200 miles from home to teach her respect, they had no idea I'd use my skills as an attorney to teach them about real consequences. Family is supposed to protect you, not traumatize you. The moment I saw my daughter's tear-stained face, I knew I wouldn't rest until justice was served. Before I tell you how I destroyed my brother's life for abandoning my daughter, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you've ever had to protect someone you love from your own family. Life hasn't been easy for Lily and me. 5 years ago, my wife Jessica lost her battle with aggressive breast cancer, leaving me to raise our then 6-year-old daughter alone. The transition from being part of a team to solo parenting was the hardest thing I've ever faced. Some nights, after tucking Lily into bed, I'd sit in my home office and just stare at the wall, wondering how I was supposed to be both mother and father to a little girl who had her mom's blue eyes and contagious laugh. As an attorney specializing in family law, I had the flexibility to adjust my schedule around Lily's needs, but the emotional weight was crushing. There were birthday parties where Lily was the only kid without a mom, school projects that clearly called for a mother's touch, and countless nights when she'd cry herself to sleep asking why her mom had to leave us. Each time, I felt like I was failing her, even though logically I knew I was doing my best. My brother Travis is 3 years older than me, and throughout our lives, he's been the golden child in our family. Our parents, Gerald and Martha, always seemed to excuse his behavior while holding me to a higher standard. Travis married Heather right after college, and they quickly had 2 kids, Ethan, now 13, and Sophie, 9. From the outside, they appeared to be the perfect family, but those of us closer to the situation knew better. Travis and Heather ran their household like drill sergeants. Their parenting style was all about control, strict rules, and harsh consequences. Their kids walked on eggshells around them, especially around Travis, whose temper could flare at the smallest infraction. Once, when Ethan was 7, he accidentally spilled juice on Travis's laptop. My brother made him stand in the corner for 2 hours, and then grounded him for a week. I remember exchanging glances with Jessica during that visit, both of us uncomfortable but unsure how to intervene. After Jessica died, Travis had plenty of opinions about how I was raising Lily. "You're too soft on her," he'd say. "She needs discipline, structure. Kids need to respect authority." These comments usually came during family dinners at our parents' house, with Mom and Dad nodding along as if Travis, who'd never experienced a day of single parenting, was dispensing wisdom from on high. What Travis failed to understand was that Lily and I had our own rhythm. Sure, there were boundaries and expectations in our home, but there was also space for grief, for questions, for figuring things out together. Lily wasn't disrespectful. She was processing the loss of her mother and learning to navigate the world with only one parent. She had good days and bad days. On the bad ones, I chose compassion over punishment, and on the good ones, we celebrated small victories together. Our extended family had a tradition of spending 2 weeks each summer at a beach house in Florida, about 1,200 miles from our home in Michigan. The year before, Lily and I had skipped the trip. It was too soon after Jessica's passing, and neither of us felt up to pretending we were okay for the sake of family harmony. But this year, Lily had specifically asked if we could go. She missed her cousins, she said, and thought it might be fun to build sandcastles like she used to do with her mom. How could I say no to that? Despite my reservations about spending 2 weeks with Travis and Heather, I wanted Lily to have normal childhood experiences and maintain connections with her extended family. So I requested time off work, packed our bags, and tried to mentally prepare for whatever judgments might come our way. As we loaded the car for the long drive, Lily was bouncing with excitement. She'd packed her favorite swimsuit, a collection of seashells from previous trips, and a journal her therapist had suggested she use to record her feelings. Looking at her bright smile, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this trip would be good for us. Maybe Travis and Heather would keep their opinions to themselves for once. Maybe my parents would see how well Lily was doing despite the challenges we'd faced. What I didn't fully appreciate at the time was the depth of Travis's control issues. Throughout our lives, he'd always needed to be the one in charge, the one making decisions, the one everyone deferred to. Our parents had enabled this behavior, always stepping back when Travis stepped forward. I'd learned to pick my battles with him, but I'd never imagined he'd extend his need for control to my daughter in such a devastating way. I should have known better. There had been warning signs over the years, moments when Travis's anger seemed disproportionate to the situation, times when even Heather seemed afraid of his reactions. But we all made excuses for him. "That's just Travis," our parents would say. "He's passionate," or my personal favorite, "He means well." As Lily and I hit the road, singing along to her playlist and stopping for ice cream along the way, I had no idea that this trip would permanently alter our family dynamics. I couldn't have imagined that my brother, a man who'd held baby Lily in the hospital the day she was born and promised to always be there for her, would betray her trust in such a profound way, or that I would find myself building a legal case against my own flesh and blood. But that's exactly what happened, and looking back, I can see now that it was inevitable. The collision course was set long before we packed our bags for Florida. The drive to Florida took us 2 days, with an overnight stop in Atlanta. Lily was a trooper throughout the journey, entertaining herself with books and games, only occasionally asking, "How much longer?" By the time we pulled up to the beach house, a sprawling 3-story rental with a deck overlooking the Gulf of Mexico, she was practically vibrating with excitement. "Dad, look, the ocean," she squealed, her face pressed against the car window. For a moment, I saw the world through her eyes, the endless blue horizon, the promise of adventure, the temporary escape from our everyday reality. It reminded me why I'd agreed to this trip in the first place. Travis and his family had arrived the day before, along with our parents. They came out to greet us as we parked, a picture-perfect, welcoming committee. My father helped with the bags, while my mother hugged Lily tightly, commenting on how much she'd grown. Ethan and Sophie, initially standoffish, eventually warmed up enough to show Lily the hermit crab they'd found on the beach that morning. The first few days were surprisingly pleasant. We settled into a routine of beach time in the morning, lunch back at the house, and various activities in the afternoon: mini-golf, a local aquarium, shopping at the tourist traps that lined the main strip. Lily soaked up every experience, collecting seashells and taking pictures to show her friends back home. But by day 4, the cracks began to show. It started at breakfast when Lily, exhausted from staying up late talking with her cousins, didn't want to wake up at 7 for a deep-sea fishing excursion Travis had planned. "Everyone participates in family activities," Travis declared, standing in the doorway of the room Lily shared with Sophie. "It's disrespectful to sleep in when others are waiting." I intervened, suggesting that Lily and I could catch up with them later. "She's still adjusting to the time change," I explained, though we both knew that wasn't really the issue. The truth was, Lily had no interest in fishing and had told me the night before that the idea of hooks and flopping fish made her queasy. Travis's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue further. As he walked away, though, I heard him mutter something about letting her run the show. The comment stung, but I brushed it off. Lily and I spent a peaceful morning collecting shells and reading on the beach while the others went fishing. When they returned with no fish, I might add, Travis was still cool toward us, but the moment seemed to have passed. Until that evening, when another incident occurred, Heather had instituted a no phones at the dinner table rule, which was reasonable enough. But when Lily's phone buzzed with a text from her best friend back home, she instinctively reached for it. Heather cleared her throat pointedly, and Lily quickly put the phone down. But after dinner, I overheard Heather telling my mother that Lily was deliberately testing boundaries and needed firmer handling. The criticism continued over the next few days. Lily was too loud when playing with her cousins. She was inconsiderate for using the bathroom for too long in the morning. She was showing off when she built an elaborate sand sculpture that impressed some passing beachgoers. With each criticism, I saw Lily shrink a little more, her initial excitement giving way to anxiety. On day 6 of our vacation, Travis cornered me on the deck while the kids were inside watching a movie. "You need to get that girl of yours under control," he said, taking a swig of his beer. She's setting a bad example for Ethan and Sophie. Excuse me? I set my own drink down, trying to keep my tone even. What exactly is she doing that's so problematic? It's her attitude, Travis replied. The eye-rolling, the sighing, the constant negotiating. My kids know better than to question rules or expectations. Lily is 11, I reminded him. She's finding her voice, learning to express herself. And frankly, I'm proud of her for that. Travis scoffed. That's exactly the problem. You're raising her to think her opinions matter more than respect for authority. She'll never function in the real world that way. The real world values critical thinking, I countered. And respect goes both ways. Kids deserve to be treated with respect too. Our conversation ended there, both of us too stubborn to find middle ground. But the tension lingered. I noticed Ethan had started mimicking his father's disapproving looks whenever Lily spoke up during family discussions. Even sweet Sophie seemed torn between playing with her cousin and seeking her parents' approval. Sensing that we all needed some space, I planned a day trip for Lily and me to a nearby marine sanctuary. It was a welcome break from the increasingly oppressive atmosphere at the beach house. Lily visibly relaxed as soon as we were alone, chattering excitedly about the dolphins and sea turtles we saw. For a few hours, I got my happy, carefree daughter back. But when we returned to the beach house that evening, Travis and Heather were waiting in the living room, their expressions grim. Apparently, while we were gone, Heather had decided to tidy up the girls' room and had found Lily's journal open on her bed. In it, Lily had written about how she felt her aunt and uncle didn't like her, and how she wished we could go home early. She has no right to speak about us that way, Heather said, her voice trembling with indignation. After all we've done to include her, to make this vacation special. I was furious at the invasion of Lily's privacy, but managed to keep my voice steady as I explained that the journal was a therapeutic tool, a safe space for Lily to express her feelings without judgment. Her therapist specifically told her that no one would read it, I added pointedly. Therapist, Travis repeated with a sneer. That's another thing. You've got her convinced she needs therapy when what she really needs is discipline. You're raising a victim, Derek. I felt my hands curl into fists at my sides and knew it was time to leave before I said or did something I couldn't take back. We'll discuss this another time, I said tightly. Right now, I need to check on my daughter. I found Lily curled up in a corner of the porch swing, trying to make herself as small as possible. When I sat beside her, she leaned into me, her thin shoulders shaking with silent sobs. I hate it here, she whispered. Uncle Travis looks at me like I'm doing everything wrong. And Aunt Heather read my private journal, Dad. That was just for me and Dr. Wilson. I held her close, feeling her tears soak through my shirt. I know, sweetie. I'm so sorry that happened. We can leave if you want. We can pack up right now and drive home. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. But what about Grandma and Grandpa and the sandcastle contest tomorrow? I was going to do one that looks like the castle from Mom's favorite movie. My heart ached at the mention of Jessica. Even in her distress, Lily was thinking of ways to honor her mother's memory. We can stay, I decided, but things need to change. I'm going to have a serious talk with everyone tonight, and if things don't improve, we're out of here. Deal? Lily nodded, attempting a wobbly smile. Deal. I should have followed my first instinct. We should have left that night. But I wanted to believe that my family could do better, that they would respect my boundaries once I made them clear. I wanted Lily to build that sandcastle for her mom. That decision to stay just a little longer is one I'll regret for the rest of my life. The next morning started with an uneasy truce. Everyone was polite at breakfast, though the conversations felt forced. Lily kept her head down, focusing on her cereal, while Travis and Heather maintained a pointed silence toward us. My parents, as usual, pretended nothing was wrong, chattering about their plans to visit a local art gallery. Around 10, my phone rang. It was Barbara, my legal assistant, calling about an emergency with one of my cases. A judge had made an unexpected ruling that required immediate attention. I stepped out onto the deck to take the call, mouthing to Lily that I'd be back soon. The call was complicated, requiring me to review documents Barbara emailed and draft a response. What I thought would take 20 minutes stretched into an hour. When I finally wrapped up, I headed back inside, expecting to find Lily reading or playing with her cousins. Instead, the house felt oddly quiet. Sophie was watching TV alone. "Where's Lily?" I asked her. Sophie shrugged without looking away from the screen. "I don't know. She was being rude, and Dad got mad." A flicker of alarm ran through me. "What do you mean, rude? And where did they go?" "Lily said she didn't want to help clean up the kitchen because it wasn't her mess," Sophie replied, her eyes still glued to the cartoon. "Dad said she needed to learn about responsibilities and respect." I quickly checked all the rooms in the house, calling Lily's name with increasing urgency. When I couldn't find her, I went back to the living room where my mother had just returned from the gallery. "Mom, where's Lily?" I demanded. She looked confused. "Isn't she with Travis? I thought I heard him say he was taking her for a drive to have a talk about her behavior." My stomach dropped. When was this? How long ago did they leave? Maybe an hour? "I'm not sure, dear. I'm sure they'll be back soon." I pulled out my phone and called Travis. The call went straight to voicemail. I tried again with the same result. Now, thoroughly alarmed, I found Heather in the kitchen. "Where did Travis take Lily?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice level. Heather's expression was cold. "He's teaching her a valuable lesson about respect and consequences. They'll be back when she understands what's expected of her." "What does that mean? Where are they?" My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. Heather continued loading the dishwasher as if we were discussing something as mundane as the weather. Travis felt it was time for some tough love. Lily's attitude has been affecting everyone's vacation. "Heather," I said through gritted teeth, "tell me where my daughter is right now." She sighed, finally turning to face me. "Honestly, I don't know exactly where they went. Travis said something about showing her what happens when you can't rely on other people to bail you out." Cold fear washed over me. I knew my brother's temper, his rigid views on discipline. "Are you saying he left her somewhere? Alone?" "I'm sure it's not as dramatic as you're making it sound," Heather replied, but her eyes slid away from mine. "He probably just drove her to a park or something to have a serious conversation." I called Travis again, then again, each call going straight to voicemail. I left increasingly desperate messages, my hands shaking as I paced the kitchen. Just as I was about to call the local police, my phone rang with an unknown number. I answered immediately. "Hello? Lily? Dad?" Her voice was small, trembling. I could hear her trying not to cry. "Dad, can you come get me, please? Lily, where are you? Are you okay? Is Uncle Travis with you?" "No," she sobbed, the dam breaking. "He left me here. He said I had to learn about consequences. Dad, I'm scared. There are weird people here." "Where is here, sweetheart? Tell me exactly where you are." I was already grabbing my car keys, heading for the door. "It's a gas station. Speedy Phil, I think?" "The man at the counter, Aaron. He let me use the phone. Uncle Travis gave me $20 and said if I was so grown up and disrespectful, I could figure out my own way back." Her voice cracked on the last words. "Put Aaron on the phone, Lily. Right now." There was a rustling sound, and then a man's voice came on the line. "Hello? This is Derek Wilson, Lily's father. Can you tell me exactly where you're located?" Aaron gave me the address, a gas station off Highway 98, nearly 50 miles from our beach house. He assured me that Lily was safe, that he'd keep an eye on her until I arrived, and that he'd already called the local police about the situation. The drive to get to Lily was a blur of rage and terror. I called my parents from the car, tersely explaining what had happened. My father's shocked silence and my mother's tearful denial did nothing to calm me. All I could think about was Lily, alone and afraid, abandoned by someone who was supposed to protect her. When I finally pulled into the gas station parking lot, Lily was sitting inside, behind the counter with Aaron, a middle-aged man with kind eyes and a protective demeanor. The moment she saw me, she ran into my arms, her small body shaking with sobs. "I'm sorry, Dad," she kept saying. "I didn't mean to be disrespectful. I told Uncle Travis I was sorry, but he said sorry wasn't good enough." I held her tight, my own eyes burning with tears of fury and relief. "You have nothing to be sorry for, Lily. Nothing. This wasn't your fault." After thanking Aaron profusely and getting his contact information, both as a witness and to send him a proper thank you later, I got the full story from Lily in the car. Apparently, while I was on my work call, Travis had criticized her for not helping with dishes. When Lily pointed out that she'd already helped clean up after breakfast while Ethan played video games, Travis accused her of talking back and making excuses. "He grabbed my arm really hard," Lily said quietly, showing me the marks on her skin. "He said I needed to learn respect, and he was going to teach me since you wouldn't. Then he told me to get in his car." Travis had driven in silence for nearly an hour, with Lily growing increasingly frightened in the passenger seat. Finally, he'd pulled into the gas station, handed her $20, and told her this was her life lesson in respecting adults and following rules. He said if I was smart enough to argue with grown-ups, I was smart enough to figure out how to get back to the beach house, Lily continued, her voice small. "He said you'd babied me too much and it was time I faced real consequences. Then he just drove away." The thought of my little girl watching her uncle's car disappear, standing alone in a strange place surrounded by strangers, made me physically ill. But beneath the nausea was a cold, calculating anger I'd never experienced before. Travis hadn't just crossed a line. He'd shattered every bond of trust and family, and he would pay for that. "We're going back to the beach house," I told Lily as I started the car. "We're going to pack our things, and then we're going home. But first, I need to have a word with your uncle." "Are you going to yell at him?" Lily asked, her eyes wide. I took a deep breath, trying to master my rage for her sake. "No, sweetie. I'm going to do something much worse. I'm going to make sure he never hurts you or any other child ever again." The drive back to the beach house was tense. Lily had fallen into an exhausted sleep in the back seat, emotionally drained from her ordeal. I kept glancing at her in the rearview mirror, my mind racing between concern for her well-being and plans for what would happen next. When we pulled up to the house, I gently woke Lily. "Stay in the car for a few minutes, okay? Lock the doors. I'm going to talk to everyone first." She nodded, her face still pale and drawn. "Are we going home today?" "Absolutely. We'll be on the road in less than an hour." I found Heather, my parents, and the kids in the living room. Travis was conspicuously absent. "Where is he?" I demanded without preamble. My mother rose from the couch, her hands fluttering nervously. "Derek, we've been so worried. Is Lily okay? Where did you find her?" "Where is Travis?" I repeated, my voice deadly calm. "He went for a walk on the beach," my father answered. "He needed to cool down." "Derek, I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" I cut him off. "He abandoned my 11-year-old daughter at a gas station, 50 miles from here, with $20, and told her to find her own way back. What part of that could possibly be misunderstood?" Heather stood up, her face flushed. "Lily has been disrespectful this entire trip. Travis was just trying to teach her." "If you finish that sentence with a lesson, I swear to God, Heather, you will regret it," I interrupted, my control slipping. "He endangered a child, my child. That's not discipline, it's abuse. And you knew about it. You sat here and defended it while my daughter was terrified and alone. Now, son," my father began in his placating tone, "let's all calm down and talk this through like adults." "I am an adult," I replied. "And as an adult, I'm telling you that what Travis did was criminal. It wasn't strict parenting or tough love or whatever euphemism you want to use. It was child endangerment, pure and simple." At that moment, the sliding door opened, and Travis walked in from the beach. When he saw me, he had the audacity to look annoyed rather than ashamed. "So you found her," he said with a shrug. "Good. Maybe now she'll think twice before—" I didn't let him finish. In 2 strides, I was across the room, my face inches from his. "You left my daughter, your niece, alone at a gas station with strangers. She could have been kidnapped, hurt, or worse. What the hell were you thinking?" Travis didn't back down. "I was thinking it's time someone taught her about real consequences. You've been letting her run wild since Jessica died, and someone needed to step in." The mention of my late wife's name from his lips was the final straw. I felt a red haze descend over my vision, my hands curling into fists at my sides. Only the thought of Lily waiting in the car kept me from physically attacking him. "You don't ever speak her name again," I said, my voice shaking with suppressed rage. "And you stay away from my daughter. Forever." "You're overreacting," Travis scoffed. "Kids need discipline. One day you'll thank me for trying to straighten her out before it's too late." My mother stepped between us, tears streaming down her face. "Please, boys, stop this. We're family. We can work through anything as a family." "Not this," I said, stepping back. "Family doesn't endanger children. Family doesn't abandon an 11-year-old girl in a strange place to teach her a lesson. And family doesn't defend that kind of behavior." I turned to look at each of them in turn. "I'm taking Lily home. Don't call us. Don't contact us. And Travis, Heather expect to hear from the police and my lawyer." "You wouldn't," Heather gasped. "You can't possibly think we'd hurt Lily. This was just child endangerment," I finished for her. "Abandonment. Possibly assault, given the bruises on her arm. And yes, I absolutely would. In fact, I already have." Aaron at the gas station called the local police before I even arrived. My father's face had gone pale. "Derek, think about what you're doing. This could destroy your brother's career, his reputation." "He should have thought about that before he abandoned my child," I replied coldly. "Now, we're leaving. Lily and I will be back at our hotel in town tonight, and we'll be driving home tomorrow. I suggest you all take this time to reflect on your roles in what happened today, because there will be consequences." I walked out without waiting for a response. The weight of what had just happened, and what was still to come heavy on my shoulders. In the car, Lily had her knees pulled up to her chest, making herself small. "Are we going now?" she asked in a whisper. "Yes, sweetheart. We're going to a hotel for tonight, and then home tomorrow. You never have to see Uncle Travis again if you don't want to." As we drove away from the beach house, my phone began buzzing with messages and calls from my family. I ignored them all, focusing instead on getting Lily somewhere safe and quiet. That night, in our hotel room, Lily had nightmares. She woke up crying, convinced she was alone at the gas station again. I held her until she fell back asleep, my resolve hardening with each tear she shed. By morning, I had a clear plan of action. The drive home the next day was subdued. Lily slept for much of it, exhausted from her interrupted night. When she was awake, we talked about normal things, her friends back home, a book she was reading, what movie we might watch over the weekend. I wanted to create a sense of safety and normalcy for her, even as my own mind was occupied with the legal steps I would take against my brother. My phone continued to light up with messages. My parents were pleading for peace, for family unity. Travis had sent a single text. "You're making a mistake." I was helping her. Heather had written a long message about how hurt she was that I would threaten legal action against family who only wanted what was best for Lily. I ignored them all. Back home, I made 2 immediate appointments, one with Lily's therapist, Dr. Samantha Wilson, and another with my colleague Jordan Bennett, a criminal attorney who specialized in cases involving children. Dr. Wilson saw us the morning after our return. As Lily described what had happened, the therapist's normally composed expression gave way to shock and concern. After speaking with Lily alone, she called me in for a private conversation. "This is serious trauma, Derek," she said gravely. "Abandonment by a trusted family member can have lasting psychological effects. Lily is already showing signs of anxiety and fear of being left alone. I'd like to see her twice weekly for a while, and I'm also going to recommend a trauma specialist who works specifically with children. Whatever she needs." I agreed immediately. Dr. Wilson hesitated, then added, "I'm also legally obligated to report this incident to Child Protective Services. What your brother did constitutes abuse under state law." "I understand," I nodded. "In fact, I've already begun the process of filing charges against him." "That won't be easy," she warned. "Family court cases are emotionally draining, and the family pressure to drop the charges will be intense." "I don't care," I said firmly. "Lily's safety and well-being are all that matter to me. If protecting her means cutting off my brother and anyone who defends his actions, so be it." Over the next week, the pressure from my family escalated. My parents showed up at our house unannounced, begging me to reconsider, to find another way to resolve the conflict. For the family's sake, they kept saying, as if family meant more than my daughter's safety. When reasoning didn't work, they tried guilt. "This will destroy your brother," my mother wept. "His career, his marriage, everything he's worked for. He should have thought of that before he abandoned an 11-year-old girl at a gas station," I replied, unmoved. Even extended family got involved. Cousins and aunts and uncles calling to tell me I was overreacting, that Travis had made a mistake but meant well, that family disputes should be handled privately. Through it all, I stood firm. This wasn't a dispute over borrowed money or hurt feelings at Thanksgiving dinner. This was my child's safety and well-being. And I would not compromise on that, not for anyone. The morning after our return, I met with Jordan Bennett in his office downtown. Jordan and I had worked together on several cases involving child custody disputes, and I trusted his judgment implicitly. More importantly, he wasn't afraid to take on difficult cases, even when they involved family members turning against each other. "This won't be easy," Jordan warned after I'd laid out the whole story. "Family courts generally try to preserve relationships when possible. Plus, there's the matter of jurisdiction. The incident happened in Florida, but you all live in Michigan. I don't care how difficult it is," I replied. "I want maximum consequences. Criminal charges, civil suit, restraining order, everything we can throw at him." Jordan nodded thoughtfully. "We can start with the police report filed in Florida. We'll need to get copies of that and any preliminary investigation they conducted. Then we should file for a temporary restraining order here in Michigan to protect Lily immediately. After that, we can work with the prosecutor's office in Florida to pursue criminal charges for child endangerment and abandonment." Over the next few weeks, we methodically built our case. Dr. Wilson provided documentation of Lily's trauma, including her clinical assessment and ongoing treatment plan. I kept a detailed journal of Lily's symptoms: nightmares, anxiety, fear of being alone, sudden panic attacks. Each entry was another nail in Travis's coffin. We obtained the security footage from the gas station, which clearly showed Travis driving away, leaving Lily standing alone by the pumps. Aaron, the attendant who had helped Lily, provided a sworn statement describing her condition when he found her frightened, crying, clearly abandoned, and confirming that Travis had made no arrangements for her safety or supervision. The local police detective assigned to the case, Carlos Rivera, was thorough and compassionate. He interviewed Lily via video call, letting her tell her story in her own words while minimizing her trauma. His report was damning, recommending charges of child endangerment, abandonment, and reckless conduct. Child Protective Services opened their own investigation, interviewing Lily and me separately. The caseworker, a no-nonsense woman named Eleanor, was particularly concerned about the bruising on Lily's arm where Travis had grabbed her. "Physical marks elevate this case considerably," she told me. An unexpected ally emerged in Benjamin Parker, Travis and Heather's next-door neighbor. Somehow, he'd heard about what happened in Florida and reached out to me through a mutual acquaintance. "I've been concerned about Travis's temper for years," he confided during our meeting. "I've heard him screaming at his kids through the walls, seen him grab Ethan by the arm just like he did to Lily. I've called the police twice about potential domestic disturbances, but nothing ever came of it." Benjamin agreed to provide a statement about what he'd witnessed, adding another layer to our case against Travis. Meanwhile, Travis and Heather had hired Robert Fletcher, an expensive attorney known for defending high-profile clients. Robert reached out to Jordan, suggesting we meet to discuss a resolution that would benefit all parties. Jordan, with my approval, declined the offer. There would be no private settlement, no sweeping this under the rug. My parents continued their campaign to get me to drop the case. "This is tearing the family apart," my father argued during one of his unannounced visits. "Thanksgiving will be in separate houses. Christmas will be ruined. Is that what you want?" "What I want," I replied evenly, "is for my daughter to feel safe. What I want is for there to be consequences when an adult abuses a child. What I want is justice." My mother tried a different approach. "Think about Ethan and Sophie," she pleaded. "They're just children. If Travis loses his job, if there's a criminal record, how will that affect them?" I am thinking about Ethan and Sophie, I countered. Travis's behavior isn't just harmful to Lily. What do you think he's doing to his own kids behind closed doors? Maybe this case will force him to get the help he clearly needs. The first court appearance for the temporary restraining order was tense. Travis and Heather sat on one side of the courtroom, flanked by my parents and Robert Fletcher. On our side were Jordan, me, and surprisingly, my Aunt Patricia, my mother's sister who had driven 3 hours to show her support for us. I believe you're doing the right thing, Aunt Patricia had told me that morning. Someone needs to stand up for that little girl. Judge Catherine Bailey reviewed our petition carefully, examining the evidence we'd presented: the police report, the medical documentation, the witness statements. Travis's attorney argued that the incident was an isolated lapse in judgment during a stressful family vacation, that Travis had an exemplary record as an educator and community member, and that the harm to Lily had been greatly exaggerated. Judge Bailey was unimpressed by these arguments. Mr. Hundadaking Mast Taylor, she addressed Travis directly. You abandoned a child in your care at a gas station 50 miles from her temporary residence, with minimal resources and no supervision. This court takes such actions extremely seriously. The temporary restraining order is granted. You are to have no contact with Lily Wilson, either directly or through third parties, and must remain at least 500 feet from her at all times. It was a small victory, but an important one. As we left the courthouse, Travis shouted across the parking lot, "This isn't over, Derek. You're destroying this family over nothing." I didn't respond. There was nothing to say to a man who still couldn't grasp the severity of what he'd done. As the case progressed, more damaging information came to light. An anonymous tip led us to discover that Travis had a history of road rage incidents, including one that had resulted in a suspended license several years earlier. This pattern of impulsive anger supported our contention that the abandonment wasn't an isolated incident, but part of a concerning behavioral pattern. Even more troubling were the revelations that came from the mandated interviews with Ethan and Sophie. While Child Protective Services couldn't share the specific contents of those interviews with me, Jordan's contacts in the department confirmed that both children had disclosed concerning information about their father's temper and disciplinary methods. This led to a separate CPS investigation into Travis and Heather's parenting, adding another layer of scrutiny to their household. While I took no pleasure in the thought of my niece and nephew being subjected to invasive questioning, I couldn't ignore the possibility that they too were suffering under Travis's rigid control and angry outbursts. The criminal case was building steadily, with the prosecutor in Florida confident they had enough evidence to secure a conviction on charges of child endangerment and abandonment. The civil case, seeking damages for Lily's emotional distress and ongoing therapy costs, was proceeding in parallel. Through it all, Lily continued to struggle. Some days were better than others. She had returned to school but was jumpy and anxious. Loud noises startled her. She panicked if I was more than a few minutes late picking her up from activities. At night, she often crawled into my bed, seeking reassurance that she wasn't alone. Each difficult moment strengthened my resolve. This wasn't just about punishing Travis anymore. It was about showing Lily that adults would protect her, that her feelings mattered, that when someone hurt her, there would be consequences. It was about teaching her that she deserved better than what Travis had done to her, and that I would move heaven and earth to keep her safe. As difficult as the legal battle was, I never once considered backing down. Some lines, once crossed, can never be uncrossed, and abandoning a child, my child, was one of them. 6 months after the incident, we finally had our day in court for the criminal case. The courthouse in Pensacola, Florida, was imposing, all marble columns and solemn formality. Jordan and I had flown down 2 days earlier to prepare with the local prosecutor, a sharp-witted woman named Veronica Diaz, who specialized in cases involving children. "We've got a strong case," Veronica assured us as we reviewed the evidence one last time. "The security footage alone is damning, but coupled with the testimony from the gas station attendant, the medical documentation of Lily's trauma, and the physical evidence of bruising, I'm confident we can secure a conviction." "Will Lily need to testify?" I asked, my stomach knotting at the thought of putting her through that ordeal. "We've arranged for her to testify via closed-circuit TV," Veronica explained. She won't have to be in the courtroom with your brother, and we've prepared her thoroughly for what to expect. Lily had indeed been working with a court advocate for weeks, practicing her testimony and becoming familiar with the process. She was nervous, but determined. "I want to tell the truth, Dad," she'd said the night before we left. "I don't want Uncle Travis to do this to another kid." The trial itself was grueling. Travis's attorney, Robert Fletcher, tried to paint a picture of a concerned uncle attempting an unorthodox but well-intentioned disciplinary technique. He emphasized Travis's 20-year career in education, his volunteer work with youth organizations, his otherwise spotless record. "Mr. Taylor made a regrettable error in judgment," Fletcher argued smoothly, "but his intent was educational, not harmful. He believed he was teaching his niece a valuable life lesson about respect and consequences in a controlled environment." Veronica dismantled this defense methodically. "A gas station 50 miles from home is not a controlled environment for an 11-year-old child," she countered. "And abandonment is not an educational technique, it's a crime." Mr. Taylor didn't just leave his niece to think about her behavior for a few minutes. He drove away, leaving her alone among strangers, with no means of communication and inadequate resources to ensure her safety. When it was time for Lily to testify, the courtroom was cleared of spectators except for immediate family and legal representatives. On a large screen, we could see her sitting in a separate room with a court advocate beside her. Despite her nervousness, she spoke clearly, describing what had happened that day in simple, honest terms. "Uncle Travis was really angry because I said I had already helped with breakfast dishes when he told me to do the lunch dishes," she explained. "He grabbed my arm really hard, it left bruises, and said I needed to learn respect. Then he made me get in his car." She described the long, silent drive, her growing fear as they got farther from the beach house, and the moment when Travis pulled into the gas station. "He gave me $20 and said if I was smart enough to talk back to adults, I was smart enough to figure out how to get back on my own. Then he just drove away. I was really scared. I didn't know where I was or how to get back. I thought maybe he was just trying to scare me and would come back, but he didn't." The simplicity of her account was devastating. There was no embellishment, no dramatic flourishes, just the straightforward recollection of a child who had been betrayed by someone she should have been able to trust. When Travis took the stand in his own defense, his demeanor had changed from the defiant anger I'd seen at the beach house. Now he was contrite, humble, acknowledging that he'd made a serious mistake but insisting that he'd never intended to cause harm. "I thought I would drive around the block and come back for her," he claimed. "I just wanted to scare her a little, to make the lesson stick. But then I got a phone call about a work emergency, and I got distracted. By the time I remembered and went back, she was already gone." This new version of events collapsed under cross-examination. The security footage showed no attempt by Travis to return to the gas station. His phone records, subpoenaed for the trial, showed no incoming calls during the relevant time period. And Aaron, the gas station attendant, testified that he'd waited with Lily for over an hour before I arrived, during which time Travis never returned or called. "He told me she was his niece and that her dad would pick her up soon," Aaron recalled. "But something felt off about the whole situation. She was clearly terrified, and he just drove away without looking back. That's when I called the police." The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours before returning with a verdict: guilty on all counts. The judge, a stern woman named Catherine Bailey, coincidentally the same name as the judge who had granted our initial restraining order, though a different person, didn't hide her disgust when delivering the sentence. "Mr. Taylor, as an educator and a family member, you held positions of trust and responsibility toward this child," she stated. "Your betrayal of that trust is particularly egregious. The court sentences you to 2 years of probation, mandatory completion of anger management and parenting classes, 500 hours of community service, and upholds the permanent restraining order preventing contact with Lily Wilson. Furthermore, this conviction will be reported to the State Board of Education for appropriate action regarding your teaching license." It was a significant victory, but only the beginning. The civil case followed, resulting in a substantial financial judgment to cover Lily's ongoing therapy and compensation for emotional distress. Travis and Heather were required to publicly acknowledge the harm caused and issue a formal apology, though the wording was so clearly crafted by their attorney that it carried little emotional weight. The ripple effects of the case extended far beyond the courtroom. Travis lost his job as an assistant principal when his conviction was reported to the Board of Education. His teaching license was suspended pending review, effectively ending his career in education. Heather, who worked as a pediatric nurse, was placed on probation by her employer, her access to young patients restricted. Child Protective Services completed their investigation of Travis and Heather's parenting, resulting in a safety plan that included parenting classes, regular home visits, and temporary placement of Ethan and Sophie with my parents, while Travis completed his court-mandated programs. The family fracture was complete and, from my perspective, irreparable. Holiday gatherings were now held separately, with my parents awkwardly dividing their time between us. Extended family members chose sides, some supporting my decision to press charges, others condemning me for destroying Travis's life over one mistake. My parents, after initially siding with Travis, eventually came to a grudging acceptance of the situation. My mother visited one evening, 6 months after the trial, her face drawn with exhaustion and sadness. "I still don't understand why it had to go this far," she said as we sat at my kitchen table, Lily safely asleep upstairs. "But I want you to know that I see now how serious it was, what Travis did. It wasn't just a bad decision, it was wrong, and Lily deserved better. It wasn't exactly the full-throated apology I might have wanted, but it was a start. I agreed to let her and my father have supervised visits with Lily, contingent on Lily's comfort and Dr. Wilson's approval. Travis made one last desperate attempt to turn the family against me. He showed up unannounced at my parents' house during a Sunday dinner I was attending with Lily, a clear violation of the restraining order. He burst in, wild-eyed and ranting about how I'd destroyed his life, his career, his reputation. Rather than engaging with his anger, I calmly gathered Lily and prepared to leave, simultaneously calling the police to report the violation. My father, in a moment that surprised me, stepped between Travis and us. "That's enough," he said firmly. "You need to leave, Travis. You're not supposed to be anywhere near Lily, and you know it. Your actions have consequences, and this is one of them." It was the first time I'd ever heard my father hold Travis accountable for anything, and though it came far too late to undo the damage, it meant something. Travis and Heather moved to Arizona shortly after that incident, ostensibly for a fresh start but more likely to escape the cloud of disgrace that now hung over them in our community. I heard through family channels that they were in marriage counseling, that Travis was working construction, and that Heather had found a job in a doctor's office rather than a hospital. I felt no satisfaction in their downfall, only a grim sense that justice had been served. My focus remained where it had always been, on Lily's healing and well-being. The case had changed me professionally as well. I found myself taking on more cases related to child protection, using my experience to help other families navigate the complex and often traumatic legal system. There was a new fire in my advocacy, a deeper understanding of what was at stake in every case involving a child's safety. As for my relationship with my brother, it was over in any meaningful sense. Some betrayals can't be forgiven, some lines can't be uncrossed. Travis had endangered the most precious person in my life, and no amount of time, therapy, or legal consequences could rebuild the trust he had shattered that day at the gas station. Family, I had learned, isn't just about blood. It's about trust, respect, and protection. And sometimes, protecting your real family means cutting off those who would harm them, no matter what name they share with you. 6 months after the trial concluded, Lily and I established a new normal. The acute phase of her trauma had eased, though there were still difficult days. Dr. Wilson had reduced our sessions to once weekly, noting significant progress in Lily's ability to process what had happened. "She's remarkably resilient," Dr. Wilson told me during one of our parent consultations. "The fact that you believed her immediately, took decisive action to protect her, and never wavered in your support has made all the difference." Lily no longer panicked when I was a few minutes late picking her up from school. She'd started sleeping in her own room again, though occasionally she'd still appear at my bedside after a nightmare. She'd resumed her after-school activities, dance class, art club, swimming lessons gradually rebuilding the normal childhood routine that had been disrupted by trauma. We'd created new traditions, just the two of us. Every Sunday morning we made pancakes together, experimenting with different additions, blueberries, chocolate chips, bananas, even bacon once, which was a spectacular failure that had us laughing until our sides hurt. Once a month, we had a adventure day where we'd drive to a nearby town or city and explore without any specific agenda. These small, consistent rituals helped restore Lily's sense of safety and stability. One of the most profound changes was in our extended definition of family. Aaron, the gas station attendant who had helped Lily during her ordeal, had become an unexpected friend. His wife Maria and their 3 children lived about an hour from us, and we'd visit every few months for barbecues or game nights. Their oldest daughter, Isabella, was close to Lily's age, and the two had formed a tight bond despite the distance. "It's weird how something so awful led to something so good," Lily remarked after one such visit. "If Uncle Travis hadn't left me at that gas station, we never would have met Aaron and his family." Her ability to find silver linings amazed me. While I would have given anything to spare her the trauma she'd experienced, I couldn't deny that some beautiful connections had emerged from the darkness. My relationship with Jordan, my colleague who had helped build the case against Travis, had also evolved beyond the professional. What started as coffee meetings to discuss strategy had gradually transformed into dinners, movies, and eventually something more serious. Jordan understood the protective fire that drove me like few others could, and Lily had taken to him immediately, appreciating his dry humor and the way he always treated her opinions with genuine respect. "He doesn't talk to me like I'm a little kid," she explained when I asked what she thought of him. "He talks to me like I'm a person." My parents were making halting efforts to rebuild their relationship with us. Our first few visits had been awkward and tense, with unspoken recriminations hanging in the air. But gradually, we found a new way to relate to each other. They were more careful with Lily now, more attentive to her boundaries and moods. My father, in particular, seemed determined to make amends, often engaging Lily in conversations about her interests in a way he never had before. "I think Grandpa's trying really hard," Lily observed after they'd spent an afternoon teaching her to fish at a local pond. "He apologized to me, you know, for not believing how scary it was when Uncle Travis left me. He said adults are supposed to protect kids, not scare them, and he was sorry he didn't understand that right away." That simple acknowledgement of her experience meant more to Lily and to me than any grand gesture could have. It was a step toward healing, though the road would be long and likely never complete. As for Travis and Heather, we had no direct contact. The restraining order remained in effect, and I had no desire to revisit that chapter of our lives. Through family channels, I heard that they had divorced, the strain of the legal proceedings and public disgrace finally breaking their marriage. Travis had apparently made several attempts to contact my parents, seeking reconciliation, or at least understanding, but even they maintained a careful distance now. "He wants me to talk to you about forgiveness," my mother admitted during one of her visits. "He says he's changed, that therapy has helped him understand his anger issues." "That's good for him," I replied neutrally. But forgiveness isn't the same as restoration of trust. Some boundaries need to remain permanent for Lily's safety and well-being. My mother nodded sadly, but didn't press the issue. She understood, finally, that protecting Lily was non-negotiable. The legal aftermath continued to unfold. Travis's teaching license was permanently revoked, following a review by the state board. The civil judgment had required him to pay for Lily's therapy, which he did, though always through his lawyer rather than directly. Ethan and Sophie had returned to living with him and Heather before the divorce, under supervision from CPS, but now split their time between their parents' separate homes. I worried about my niece and nephew, caught in the crossfire of adult mistakes and consequences. Through my mother, I let them know that I was still their uncle, still cared about them, and would be there if they ever needed me. Whether that message truly reached them, I couldn't say. The most meaningful progress, though, was in Lily herself. The anniversary of the incident passed with some increased anxiety but no major setbacks. She had developed remarkable insight into her own emotions and needs, often impressing Dr. Wilson with her self-awareness. I get scared sometimes, she told me one evening as we worked on a jigsaw puzzle together. But then I remember that you came for me. You always come for me. Always, I promised, my throat tight with emotion. And I'm learning that it wasn't my fault, she continued, focusing intently on fitting a puzzle piece into place. Uncle Travis didn't leave me because I was bad or disrespectful. He left me because he has problems with anger and control. That's what Dr. Wilson says. She's right, I agreed. Nothing you did could ever justify what happened. Adults are responsible for their own actions, especially when it comes to keeping children safe. Lily nodded, then looked up with a wisdom beyond her years. I think maybe Uncle Travis never learned that. Maybe nobody ever stood up for him when he was a kid, so he didn't know how important it is. Her compassion stunned me. After everything she'd been through, she could still find empathy for the person who had hurt her. Not excusing his behavior, but understanding the complex human factors that might have contributed to it. That's possible, I acknowledged. But it still doesn't make what he did okay. No, she agreed. It doesn't. That's why consequences are important, right? So people learn and do better next time. In that moment, I realized that Lily had internalized the most important lesson from this ordeal. Not that the world was dangerous or that people couldn't be trusted, but that accountability matters. That standing up for yourself and others is necessary. That love sometimes means setting firm boundaries. As we approach the 1-year mark of what happened in Florida, I can see how far we've come. Lily is thriving in school, has solid friendships, and talks about the future with excitement rather than fear. I've found a better balance between work and home, prioritizing our time together even as my legal practice continues to grow. And we've created a chosen family around us, Jordan, Aaron, and Maria, supportive friends and neighbors who enrich our lives in countless ways. The journey hasn't been easy, and it isn't over. Healing isn't linear. It's a winding road with unexpected setbacks and surprising moments of grace. But we're traveling it together, Lily and I, one day at a time. If there's one thing I want Lily to carry forward from this experience, it's the knowledge that she deserves protection, respect, and love. No exceptions, no compromises. And if there's one thing I've learned as her father, it's that sometimes teaching someone a lesson means standing up to them, not backing down, especially when a child's well-being is at stake. Family is precious, yes, but a family that demands loyalty while enabling harm isn't truly family at all. Real family, whether bound by blood or by choice, protects its most vulnerable members at all costs. And that's a lesson worth teaching, no matter how difficult the class. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have pursued legal action against a family member who endangered your child, or would you have tried to handle it privately? Drop a comment below sharing your thoughts. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult. Thank you for listening. And remember, the strongest people aren't those who never face challenges, but those who face them with courage and integrity.